Everything, everywhere, all at once. Right. This movie, in a sentence, here's how I define it. Rick and Morty meets Kung Fu Hustle meets Gilmore Girls. That's it. What do I mean when I say that? This movie obviously explores a lot of sci-fi themes and such and such, but it's one of those things similar to Rick and Morty that makes you think about what is our place in the universe when you start to realize the fact that we are just like a speck on in a very wide galaxy, in a universe that could be with so much like infinite space, that could be part of how many other universes, assuming, because I don't know if it's confirmed that multiple parallel universes are real. If you believe in like the many worlds theory, all that stuff. And it reminded me, watching this movie, it reminded me of a quote and something that the makers of Rick and Morty tried to allude to. Dan Harmon, who's one of the co-creators of Rick and Morty, he said something once that when you watch an episode of Rick and Morty, similar to this movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once, you are very aware of the fact that Rick and Morty are just two people in an infinite universe, infinite galaxies, solar systems, suns, moons, stars, such and such. So what is their place? But then you zoom in, I should say, to their family life, to the unit, to their bonds, their arguably very effed up, conflicted bond as grandfather and grandson. And you realize, oh shoot, that's what matters. The people close to you, your loved ones, hence being a loved one. The people, the ride or dies, if you will. And that was this movie for me. This movie, of course, explores certain things that I don't want to spoil. If you know, you know. It explores our place in an infinite universe, but at the same time, it's doing that through something very relatable, like ties to loved ones, like a bond between a father and a son, auntie, nephew, whichever. And that's where the Gilmore Girls feeling comes in, as well as like a Rick and Morty feeling. Another thing I really liked about this film, it made me think a lot about whether people should accept nihilism more. Because there's a character in this movie, played by Stephanie Shu. Shout out to her. She looks familiar. I haven't seen her work, by the way, but she looks familiar. Maybe I have. I'm definitely gonna watch a lot more people that were in this movie. But speaking about Stephanie Shu, for example, she's a character that makes you think about, oh wait, what truly is the point to living, being a part of a community, a society, so on, such and such. Is there any point to it? And I understand, because a lot of people, maybe for religious reasons, maybe just for certain strong values they have, they will get offended by that question. But I think it's really important to ask through these movies, because this movie is so quirky but so serious at the same time. And I reckon it explores very personal things, but very grand concepts that show it is a very mirror concept, like the young, the old, personal depression versus ideas of like existentialism. People do that constantly. They question their existence, whether they admit that stuff or not. And you see that through Stephanie Shu's character, as well as Michelle Yeoh's character, who I'll get to. Trust me, I'll get to her. She's great in this movie. As well as certain other characters that you can tell, you can interpret maybe in more subtle ways. That, did they really want to get to this point in life? Is this what they always wanted for themselves? What are other possibilities? If they were to go for the certain possibilities, would to go down certain other paths, would that make them happy? If they were to go down certain alternative paths, some people are happy with the little things. Some people are happy with a lot. Neither. Something in between. You never know. But I like a movie like this that makes me think about those things, and I want people to become more comfortable with having these conversations, talking about stuff that seems like really nihilistic. Like, does life matter? Does our lives really matter in the grand scheme of things? Because I think it's really important. And this movie, there were so many moments where I was like, wow, I think about that, but in a slightly different sense of being at a certain age where I know I'm getting older. I'm not necessarily young anymore, but I'm not an old head either. I'm far from it. And I'm at a crossroads mentally, knowing which path to take. And I felt that through Stephanie Shu's character, and I love that. One thing I'll say about this movie, this is I love the way it's written, this story. If that wasn't clear before, Daniel Kwan, I'll call him the Daniels, Daniel Kwan and Daniel Schreiner, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. If I mispronounce it, I apologize. Those two, anything they do in the future, I'm gonna follow them, because, like I was getting at before, this is a big concept movie, but there's also so many personal stakes, and that's what makes it so touching watching this. There's a scene with rocks. I'll just leave it there. There's a scene with rocks that pulls at your heartstrings. It plays on a certain sci-fi concept that I won't get into because spoilers. But then at the same time, it plays on something very personal that a lot of people can relate to. Like I said before, it's a very big mirroring effect in this film. The personal versus the grand, and how they're a lot closer than you think, certain concepts that we contemplate in life. And I just want to say to Daniel Kwan, Daniel Schreiner, any fans of theirs, please recommend more stuff made by them, written by them. I definitely want to see it. They give me Edgar Wright vibes without being Edgar Wright, if that makes sense. Like, you're not trying to be a copycat. You're in your own lane, but there was a certain kind of I forget the term, almost like the visual language of this movie was very, I don't want to say slapstick. That's not the right word I'm thinking of. You're very aware of everyone's movements physically, as well as the stuff that could be possibly going through their brain, and it shows you in the camera work and the editing, but as well as the dialogue and what's going through possibly people's minds, even if they don't spell it out for you. If that makes sense. And that reminds me of Edgar Wright. Speaking of Michelle Yeoh, who I mentioned earlier, her acting, massive highlight for me in this movie. I realized something, that I'm possibly more ignorant on her career and on the career of actors who I associate with Hong Kong and martial arts cinema more than I think I am, because it didn't occur to me until this movie how great of an actress she was, which is strange, but it's not strange, because I think about all the other movies I've seen her in, like I said, associated with Hong Kong martial arts cinema. The Hero, the Crouching Tigers, was she in Hero? No. The Police Story films that she was in, my mind puts her in a certain box. It only occurred to me watching this movie. That box is destroyed now, and it's a good thing, but it makes me realize that I need to explore actors from so many different genres, because sometimes, to a fault, when I love a genre, horror, martial arts, thrillers, my mind only thinks of them through that prism. even though in my mind Michelle Yeoh has always been just goated, just the Queen, Royal Highness for a long time. Her acting was just a highlight in this movie. I already knew as far as like some of the action she would boss already. She has great scenes in that sense, but her again the heartstrings really came through. Her, Stephanie Shu have certain scenes in this film. Her and Jamie Lee Curtis, certain scenes in this movie that just make you feel some type of way. This movie was a highlight because of Michelle Yeoh, first and foremost, but also just so many other things that I'll get to. Quan, or Ki, I think I'm mispronouncing his name. I apologize again. He plays the husband of Michelle Yeoh. He crept up on me again. Another case with Stephanie, similar to Stephanie Shu, where I thought I didn't see his work. If it turns out that I actually have, he's done some legendary stuff. Indiana Jones, Goonies, stuff like that. Watching this movie, I think what I like best about him is that you don't see him as like the archetypal person that would fit with this role, like as someone who's like a secret agent, if you will. Like he gave me those vibes because he was so unsuspecting, you know. And I just, yeah, he reinforced the quirky aspect of this movie, because I really felt like he was just like a run-of-the-mill everyday person until he suddenly just switched. Like, yeah, so you should do this, and then you do this, and then you do this. There's the elevator scene, fire. This movie is funny, but is also understated. It doesn't feel forced. Again, that's a writing thing. Shout out to Daniel Kwan, Daniel Scheinert, but also Kwan's acting, magnifique. Do you know what I'm saying? I like him a lot. Hopefully I'm gonna, it's my phone. Hopefully I'm gonna see more stuff with him in it. Jamie Lee Curtis bossed in this movie. Again, she starts off in doing a certain role that's kind of like at odds with certain other characters in this movie, and then again, the great actor in this movie, the great writer in this movie, you feel some type of way about her character. This movie really makes you think that everyone has a certain lot in life and certain stress that they're just trying to put to one side, but it comes out in ways that people don't realize, that we don't realize. Jamie Lee was one of those characters, but even more so with the characters I mentioned before, played by Stephanie Shu and Michelle Yeoh and Quan. Those aspects come out, those things that arguably people repress, you know. And I love that about this movie. It makes you think that this is a movie about depression, in my opinion, but also a movie about big kind of sci-fi. I keep bringing it up, but it's just, I love that about this film, like how it makes those things seem a lot more close than we like to think they are. And then lastly, what else about this film? The action, yeah. I mean, you already know, any movie with Michelle Yeoh is just, boy. That's actually why I watched this film. Someone I follow recommended it, watched it. Extra fire. I'm so glad they recommended it. And like I said, these directors, the Daniel Kwan, Daniel Scheinert, anything they write or direct, I'm going to be looking out for that from now on. Michelle Yeoh, you already know, she's boss. Stephanie Shu, I'm going to definitely check out anything she's associated with. I want to see more films like this, because we live in an age where stuff associated with sci-fi and fantasy, unfortunately, because of superhero films, is assumed that in the industry you can't have too much of like a variety of things. You can only have a lot of one thing because it attracts the money. Hopefully, when we make more of these type of films in the mainstream, it equals like more interest in all types of fantasy stuff, all types of sci-fi stuff, and that's but all types of action, because this was a sci-fi kung fu movie. Like I love that. This is a sci-fi kung fu movie. I never thought I'd say those words. It wasn't something that I knew I wanted, but once I've watched it, I can't get enough. That's an even better way to basically summarize the movie. I didn't know I wanted this. I can't get enough. That's my summary of this movie. So guys, tell me your thoughts down below. If you've seen it, do you like this movie? Do you love this movie? I know I do. If you haven't seen it, would you see it based on this review? Like I said, tell me your thoughts. Like, share with all your friends, and subscribe for more. Don't forget, click that button. It's right there. Other than that, signing off. Salute.